This is Scott, and I'm going to be talking about the Panasonic S5, which I have recently purchased. I spent real money, my money, to buy it. No one gave it to me. No one gives me nothing. Because I'm just a little guy. And I'm going to compare it to the Fuji X-T3, which I also purchased but a while ago. And I want to see how they compare to each other. And I'm going to do a few videos, and today I'm going to do one to basically kind of explore whether the Panasonic S5 is the camera for me. Again, what I'm looking for in a camera and what you're looking for in a camera may be two different things, but you may find something useful. So today, which is looking at the focus, in particular this kind of setup, which is kind of like an interview setup, but something that I do a lot in my channel, which is sit here and talk to you and pick up and show you things like my new camera, my Panasonic S5. So what I want to do is sit there and say, okay, I purchased this, it's mine. Is this camera good enough for my use, or is the Fuji still the better choice, and instead of this I should have bought the X-T4? We're going to find out. But let me go over why, what motivated me to get this. Like I said, we're all different. We all have different requirements of what we see we want in a camera. Like I said, I am a videographer and a photographer, and I would say I find both of them just as important. In the world of photography, I am not into sports so much. I mean, I like auto racing and stuff like that, but I don't do any of that professionally, just for my own benefits. And I don't necessarily need super high speed photography like you would for sports and stuff, and that puts more restraints on autofocus and everything else, and AFC that is not as stressful to me, whatever. So again, if that's what you're into, this may not be the camera for you. To its good points is the Fuji's kind of a pretty decent all-rounder, because it actually has, it goes up to I think 20 frames a second, whereas I think this one only does like 5 with autofocus. So it's restricted, but it's more than enough for my use, whether it's enough for yours. So in fact, I rarely have it on anything but single shot. Any camera I've ever had, because it's the nature of my photography. So there's that. So that's like one major thing that you can look at there. The other thing is handling and the ergonomics of a camera. Now, I'm older, and sometimes older people are into retro, because you remember back to our film days. Well, you gotta remember, I was with Canon, and for a very long time Canon had that, I guess I can't call it normal, but that more contemporary style. This style, the extended grip, the shutter out here. Pretty much, even if you go back to the old film days, I used to have Contax cameras. I miss them. They were wonderful. And the motor winders had the shutter out here. So I had that for years, and this is just a particularly personal preference. I like hand straps that go across here and hold your camera, and that works great with this style. Sadly, with the Fuji, which is beautiful and more a film style without the motor winder extensions, whatever, you can't do that, because as you look here, your finger goes right across here, right where the strap would need to go around. So it just doesn't work with this style. And that is definitely a very unique to me, I would say, because I don't think a lot of people are that much into hand straps. So that's my foible. But if you are, then you probably like that style better. And again, since we have the Fuji in our hands, you got the dials, and a lot of people love to have the dials. I personally can take them or leave them. Some people just don't understand that. I don't understand that. But whatever, we're allowed to like what we like. Again, I have an ISO dial over here, I have a shutter speed dial over here, I have a compensation dial over here. I can go up here and turn these directly before I even turn my camera on. I can kind of set things. And to some people, heard noise over there, sorry. To some people, that's important, and this camera's wonderful. So for them, this is the answer. The ergonomics of this grip, it's just different. I have no problem with this, but like I said, it's different. I will mention one thing though, as before we go to the other. Let me try to. If you look at this, to me, these ergonomics are bad because here's the joystick, and see how I'm kind of like bending like my finger, like I'm crippled with arthritis, to try to get to it, to adjust it. I don't like that. I think they should have put the joystick up here and the Q menu down here, because I don't need to press the Q menu, but I might want to use that joystick a lot more. So to me, that's an awkward setup. So again, that's how it works. Oh, I should mention that the single continuous manual focus switch is up here, which is what it is. Now, because I had Panasonic cameras before, because I had Canon cameras growing up, this is what I'm used to. This is what I prefer. Is it pretty in that retro kind of way? No, but I still think it's a pretty camera. And I suppose, before I get into it, if you look at these side by side, again, this is very unofficial here, you can see these are similar. You know, this one is APS. I forgot how short the recording time is on this thing. So first I have to change batteries, now I have to restart it to continue filming. So this is a full frame camera. So obviously it's a little bit bigger, the lenses are bigger, but the overall weight is not that different from this, and I actually prefer the hold of this. It feels natural. I am happy with it in my hand. I have learned to be very natural and fine with this, but maybe I'm more chameleon and I can adjust to one thing versus other people, because other people say, oh, take my dials away, I can't survive. Again, I said I can't understand that, because I have a dial here right at my fingertip that'll let me adjust my aperture. I have a dial right back here right at my thumb tip that will let me adjust the shutter. Now I can't see them, and this particular one, because of size restraints, does not have an LCD on top, but if my monitor is facing out, I can sit there and set my shutter speed and aperture and be looking at it. But even better, because I am older and I have to wear glasses to see things like this, I tend to like to use my EVF more. And when my eye's up here, that's right there. That's right there. I'm not looking at this freaking dial. I could care less. Because, again, I should mention, this is a PASM, Program Aperture Shutter Manual dial. So you set those, and then the camera can change to that particular function that you put it in. So if you want it to be manual, you can put it in manual. If you wanted to prefer the aperture first, you can put it in aperture preferred or shutter preferred, whatever. But again, shutter, aperture, easy peasy. Don't know why some people think it's so difficult, but again, it's not a problem with it. I shouldn't make fun of you, because if that's what you prefer, that's what you prefer. So turn this video off, go buy yourself a Fuji. But now the other thing, go to the back here, let me get it in the focus circle. That's how I said Panasonic for me has everything perfect. Here's the joystick. It's like right there. It's like right where my finger wants to be. Here's where I can adjust single shot, constant, AFC, or manual. My Q menu is down here. Again, I don't use that much, so the fact I have to reach down doesn't bother me. And here is my autofocus. So all that stuff is right at my fingertips. Again, it has a similar D-pad. You can press it this way, but you can also use it as a dial. Again, I don't have all those extra dials, marked dials, that the Fuji has, but I have something even better, I personally think. And that is that when my hand's up here, I have these 3 buttons here. If I want to adjust my white balance, I have to dig in the menus on my Fuji or assign it to another button. On here, I just hit this, boom, I'm in white balance. I can now turn this dial, or this dial, change my white balance, hit the shutter, I'm in my new white balance. Again, if I want to change my ISO, that is the middle button. Again, I can have my eye up here and I can just reach over. If you're blind, it's got a little bump. No, obviously if you're blind, the camera's not as functional. But it's got a little bump here so you can see which one is the middle one versus the other without actually looking at it, or in the dark, whatever. So again, the one with the little bump on it, that's the middle one. That's the ISO button. Hit that. Turn any one of these dials and hit the shutter button. I've changed my ISO. And the one on the end here, that is the compensation. So if I hit that button, turn any one of those 3 dials, and then hit shutter button, I can change the compensation. So to me, all the tools, all the adjustments I need to do are within easy finger presses and switches and twirling of almost my one hand. I can do everything. Sorry, I hit my camera there. So I am really fond of this setup. So for me, this is the best. But you may be different. Otherwise, they're similar. So what I'm going to do today, after I went the basic, just so you understand what I'm looking for on a camera, is I'm going to look at autofocus today, because this is one of the things that I do when it comes to video autofocus. To be honest with you, when it comes to regular, especially single shot autofocus, I see no distinct advantage to phase detect versus the contrast autofocus. I've never had an issue with the contrast autofocus in all my years of using Panasonic when it comes to single shot use. Continuous autofocus, phase detect probably has a little bit of an edge, but Panasonic definitely has upped their game on their contrast autofocus. Many of us would like to see them do phase detect someday, or do something amazing and become really, really good with contrast. Whatever, I don't care what they do. I just want them to be as good as Sony. Because to be honest with you, if you want the absolutely most be able to rely on it autofocus for video, it's Sony. The Sony A7S3 at $4,000 or whatever has raised the bar, and it is very dependable. And when it comes down to it, if you are doing video and it's not just casual video, which I would call this a little bit casual, if you can't depend on it, you should be manual focusing. But just like we, in the early days when autofocus came out, we didn't trust it, and it was not precise enough. We still manual focused as professionals. Often it has gotten to the point where everyone pretty much trusts it for single shot 90% of the time. Video autofocus may one day get to that point that even professionals will come to trust it because it's gotten that good. We're on that same peak of getting to the point that maybe we can totally trust autofocus. So definitely in the world of interviews and casual videos and everything else, if everybody can get up to that Sony standard and then move on and become better from that point, that's going to be a big turn for the industry. So that being said, I need to know whether it works for me. So this is one of the setups that I like to do, doing this kind of dialogue or whatever interview type thing. So I'm going to go and put this Panasonic S5 and the Fuji next to each other. I'm going to film at the same time, and we're going to see if either one of them is to that point of dependability that we like it to be, or if one is truly shows up as being better than the other. So give me a moment. I'm going to go and set it up, and then I'll be back. Are you recording? Okay, you're recording. I'll tell you one thing. The Panasonic puts a red box when it's recording, which is like really nice. I didn't actually mean to do the glass test, but I was glasses test first, but what the hell. Older, I wear glasses to read, so this is a test to see how well it's going to autofocus with glasses. And again, I have set these two up. They are roughly 6 inches apart. Because they're side by side, I didn't have the stack on top of each other, 6 of one, half dozen of another. I'm trying to frame these up the same. I think I'm successful in doing that. We're doing full frame on the Panasonic at 23.98. We are doing it a long up H.264. In the Fujifilm's case is an APS-C camera. Let me go ahead and take these glasses off since they don't give me that much help at this point. We are doing 23.98, again 4K. We're doing long up, but the Fuji is capable of iframes. Iframes aren't that important to me. If I did need a higher codec or whatever, I would be using my Ninja, and I have the advantage of having that. I will say that this is in 8-bit 420, which means I am still at a 30-minute restriction on my Fuji, because Fuji still has a lot of restrictions. I do have a lot of 30-minute restrictions on the S5, but in the case of this particular setting, being the more simplified 8-bit 420, it can record until the battery runs out, which if I'm not careful could happen because it's slow, whereas I have my Fuji running on a USB-C PD battery because its battery was already low. Let's go ahead and do some tests, do some moving around. They are both set to head and eye detect. Fuji's kind of weird because it's not giving me a head box, but it is giving me the eye box, so hopefully it's behaving. Whereas on the Panasonic, instead of a little box for the eye, it gives you a little crosshair on the eye that it is choosing to focus on. I am going to change the direction. This is pointing just a little bit, so I can go ahead and back up. I have these set up like in default, and I think the Panasonic tends to focus a little bit slower by its nature. So don't read too much into that, because there is the ability on both cameras to adjust the speed of focus. And anyone who is familiar with doing video, you kind of have to learn the nature of your camera in order to get the best results. So let's go ahead and move back here. Fuji is blinking on my head box off and on, which is kind of weird. And on the little screen, it's hard for me to tell whether Panasonic is doing it at all. Do keep in mind we have these little lights back here. The big problem I see will be the focus type of flutter, which even though the Fuji is phase detect, it sometimes loses focus. Panasonic is contrast autofocus, and that has always been a problem with Panasonic, although they have done great things in rewriting it theoretically from the ground up. From my little bit of playing with the camera, it looks like they've made it much better. Whether it is on pace with Fuji, I don't know. I will say, that if you really want the ultimate in autofocus, again, the Sony A7S3 seems to be the camera to get. And if I was strictly a video guy, I might consider it, though it's an expensive camera, certainly twice the numbers either one of these represent. The Fuji X-T3 is a particular value right now at $1,000, I believe. So I have lost a lot of value if I choose to sell that one. Whereas the Panasonic is a particular deal right now, because if you buy it with the lens, it's a pretty good deal. And then currently you will get a Sigma 45mm f2.8 lens for free later, to encourage sales of the camera. So that's a pretty good bonus right now. So let me go ahead and move around a little bit more. In and out. See how they behave. Again, I know they aren't exactly framed up to each other, but it should be hopefully close enough to tell. I'm using Godox lights, so let's try to. Fuji goes, no, you said face detect, dude, so that's what I'm doing. How about you, Panasonic? Will you see this? He goes, okay, I see something in front of your face, so I'm going to deal with it. Fuji went to the background. What? I know it's black. I'm sorry. Here, maybe if I turn it this way, it'll have a little more contrast. And it goes, no, you said face. Okay, Fuji, we'll fight with you. How about you, Panasonic? I'm not sure what Panasonic's doing, so well, here. Okay, but I think Panasonic's trying to see it. I don't know if it's got enough contrast, since I chose something poor here. Let's break things. Good news is didn't break anything. Okay, here we have something that's got some contrast whatever. So here, Fuji, we wanna look at this camera instead of my face. It says no, I don't want to look at that. Okay, let's see if we can make it. Okay, Fuji's definitely having an issue with that. How about you, Panasonic? Can I sit there and say, hey, look at this? Let's focus on this instead. I think they're both convinced that they were told to face detect, and that's what they want to do, but we'll see how that goes versus the Fuji X-T3 in the beginning, which I had on basically just a box focusing. So again, a little more movement, and again, Glasses, putting glasses on. Closing eyes. Then there's always the problem of saying, hey, what do you think of that? Look at the shiny lights. And whether it will, either one will lose me in that case. And since we live in the time of COVID, look in the mirror, beautiful. See how well they do with when I don't have a face, so to speak. Fuji's a little bit confused by this, but it looks like it wants to find my eye. Okay, let's give them both a challenge. How about if I have glasses and a face mask? Okay, Fuji said, no, I'm not playing. You said face detect, you're cheating. Oh, wait, maybe? Okay. Be interesting to see what we get. Okay. Well, I don't think I'll be doing too many people with face masks, but you know, this day and age might be a good thing to know. Okay, so I think that kind of gives us the idea, so I'm going to go ahead and take these and download them all and put them in the editor and put them next to each other and line them up together and see how they turn out. Okay, I'm back. I reviewed the results and I am totally pleased with what I saw. I really had some low expectations on the Panasonic. I would say neither one proved to be totally dependable. Both of them had their issues at different time. I do need to do another test at higher apertures because I know when I close that aperture down on the Fuji that my results start to become worse, and it starts to get that focus pulsing more, and I'm curious to see if the Panasonic has any issues with that, but that will be for another day because this video is already long. So I would say the good point is that it is contrast DFD Panasonic focus, but it is far better than what we were familiar with in the past. Is it up to the Sony level? No. But considering the price of this camera and the value, I think it's pretty good. You like this, and this was helpful to people who are maybe looking at the S1 versus Fuji cameras. Again, everything I've purchased myself, so not beholden to any manufacturer to say good things or bad things. So I hope you know that this is my honest opinion. If you have liked what you've seen and it's been helpful to you, would certainly appreciate a thumbs up, and I certainly would love it if you subscribed. I will be doing more videos, especially comparing my X-T3 and the Panasonic S5, as well as, I would say, from the how this one has gone, that I'll be having a lot more Panasonic S5 reviews in the future, looking at the different settings and things that are available in it. So please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.